Welcome to the deep dive, everyone, where we basically skip the endless scrolling through news feeds for you. We do the hard work, sift through a ton of information, and bring you the most important insights.
Yeah, exactly. In today's deep dive, well, it's kind of like a time machine, isn't it?
It is. It is. We're zeroing in on a specific moment in time, taking you back to Nigeria.
Nigeria on April 11th, 2025.
Yeah.
That's right. We're mainly looking at the headlines from that day.
Exactly. The headlines, the things that were making news, but we're also going to sprinkle in, some did you know facts.
Yeah, some fun facts. Maybe a little something from today in history.
Just to add a little spice to things, a little bit more context.
Exactly.
Our mission here, well, it's pretty straightforward. We want to give you a clear, hopefully engaging snapshot of what was happening in Nigeria on that day, and maybe spark your curiosity with a few of those intriguing little tidbits.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right, let's dive right in. I'm seeing a lot of activity in the economy and business section.
Yeah, there's always a lot going on there.
Always a lot going on. And this headline about the Dangote refinery, I mean, this could be huge. They're saying they're dropping petrol prices to 865.
Wow, that's a significant drop.
That is a big drop. So, I mean, what's the immediate impact? What are we going to see right away if that happens?
I think for everyday Nigerians, this is going to be a big deal. Petrol prices, they affect everything. Transportation, the cost of food, just basic goods. If prices go down like this, people are going to feel it in their wallets.
Right. It could ease some of that pressure on household budgets.
Definitely. And I think in the bigger picture, this could be a sign that Nigeria is moving away from depending so much on imported fuel.
Makes sense. They've been relying on imports for a long time.
Yeah, for years. And it's been a drain on their foreign exchange reserves.
Right, right. But I guess the big question is how long can they keep those prices so low?
That's the key, isn't it? It all depends on global oil prices, how efficiently the refinery is running, things like that.
Okay, so cheaper fuel is great, but it's not the whole story. It's part of a bigger economic picture.
Right.
Now, this next headline, it caught my eye. State governors are teaming up with China, setting up these energy planning implementation units.
Interesting.
Sounds pretty serious. What's the thinking behind this move?
When you hear a name like that, energy planning implementation units, it's basically expert teams, right? They're focused on coming up with strategies for Nigeria's energy sector.
Okay, so it's not just talk, it's about action.
Yeah, implementation, putting those plans into practice, partnering with China probably means tapping into their technology, their experience.
China's been investing heavily in things like renewable energy.
Exactly. So maybe that's part of it. Modernizing the grid, even oil and gas infrastructure. It could be a lot of things.
So potentially this could mean a more stable energy supply in Nigeria.
Yeah, more efficient too.
Yeah.
And that's vital for businesses to grow, for the whole country to develop.
Right. Reliable energy is crucial for development.
Absolutely. But the big question is how this all fits in with Nigeria's existing energy policies, their current infrastructure.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
It's all about how it integrates.
All right, let's shift gears a bit here. The federal government is setting a pretty ambitious target, $4 billion a year from the cotton textile garment industry.
Wow, that's a big number.
It is a big number. What's behind this push?
I think it shows they're serious about diversifying the economy, moving beyond just relying on oil.
Yeah, they've been talking about that for a while.
Exactly. Cotton and textiles, that's something Nigeria has a history with, right? They used to be big in that area. The government probably sees a chance to bring it back, create jobs in agriculture, in factories, in retail.
So revitalizing an industry that's already there.
Yeah, it's about building on existing strengths. But to reach $4 billion, that's going to take a lot of investment.
Yeah, modernizing those facilities, making sure the quality of the cotton is top-notch.
Absolutely. And then there are the usual challenges, things like power supply, making sure they can get their products to the market.
Right, those logistical hurdles.
Exactly. But the potential is there.
Okay, let's talk money. Nigeria just got a pretty substantial infusion of cash, $50 billion from Afrexim Bank funds.
50 billion. Wow. That's a game changer.
That is a lot of capital. What kind of impact can we expect to see from that?
That kind of money, it can be used for a whole range of things. Infrastructure projects, roads, railways, power plants. They could provide loans to businesses, support government programs. It's a massive boost.
So it's not just about the amount, it's about how they use it.
Exactly. Historically, when Nigeria has received large sums like this, well, there have been some challenges with transparency, with making sure the money is used effectively.
Right, avoiding corruption, making sure the money goes where it's supposed to.
Absolutely. The key is using these funds strategically, making sure they lead to real, sustainable economic growth.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, we're also seeing a concerning headline about agricultural losses, specifically with onions. A whopping 500 billion lost due to spoilage. The RMRDC and the Bank of Industry are stepping in to try and fix this.
That's a lot of onions and a lot of money.
It is. I mean, what can they even do about something like that?
Well, think about it. When you lose that much produce, it hurts farmers, it drives up food prices. The fact that you have the RMRDC, which is all about research and development.
Right, finding new ways to use resources.
Exactly. And the Bank of Industry, they provide funding, so it looks like they're taking a two-pronged approach. Maybe it's research into better storage, better preservation techniques, and then providing the financial support so farmers can actually use those technologies.
Okay, so a targeted solution for a very specific problem.
Yeah. Back.
Now, let's zoom in on some individual companies. Eterna, an energy company, seems to be doing well. Revenue up to $313 billion, and they're profitable again.
That's good news. When you see companies succeeding, it's a good sign for the whole economy.
It gives investors confidence.
Exactly. I wonder what's driving their success. Maybe it's higher demand, maybe they become more efficient, maybe it's just the market working in their favor. It'll be interesting to see what they say.
Yeah, to get the inside scoop. And VFD Microfinance Bank, they're also rebounding, making a profit of $366 million.
Microfinance is so important, especially for small businesses, for people who might not have access to regular banks.
Right, they play a vital role.
Absolutely. So seeing them do well, that's a positive sign for the whole financial sector.
Okay, sticking with finance, Sterling Bank is launching a zero transfer initiative. No fees for transfers.
In a market where everyone's charging fees, that's a bold move.
It could be a big draw for customers.
Absolutely. These days, everyone's doing mobile banking, online transactions. Taking away those fees, that's a way to stand out from the crowd, attract new customers, keep the ones you have happy.
Right, it makes sense from a business perspective.
It shows they're thinking ahead. It's also a sign of how competitive the Nigerian banking sector is becoming. They have to innovate to keep up.
Okay, last bit of news from the business world. Top Nigerian governors and ministers are heading to Paris for a business forum.
International outreach.
Yeah, definitely. What's the goal there?
It's all about showcasing what Nigeria has to offer, trying to attract foreign investment.
Right, make those connections.
Exactly. They'll be meeting with potential investors, maybe even closing some deals. Having those high-level officials there, it shows that the government is serious about bringing in foreign capital, boosting economic growth.
Okay, let's switch gears now, move over to politics and governance. And there's a lot going on here. Right off the bat, the federal government is issuing a warning about a potential flood crisis.
Uh-oh, that sounds serious.
It does, doesn't it? They're saying 30 states could be affected.
Wow, that kind of widespread flooding, that could be devastating. Think about the damage to infrastructure, to agriculture. People can be displaced from their homes.
Right, it's a major humanitarian concern.
Absolutely. And it really underscores how vulnerable Nigeria is to the impacts of climate change. They need to be prepared.
Okay, then we have some political intrigue. Senate President Akpabio is filing a petition with the IGP claiming Senator Natasha is making assassination allegations against him.
That's a serious accusation.
It is. And at the same time, Akpabio is also focused on building stronger ties with China's parliament.
So two very different issues he's dealing with.
Yeah. What do you make of that?
Well, the assassination allegations, that's something the police need to investigate thoroughly. It shows how intense political rivalries can get. And those ties with China, that's interesting. Nigeria has been working closely with China on the economic front, and now it seems they're looking to increase cooperation on the legislative side, too.
Right, sharing ideas, maybe even influencing each other's policies.
Exactly. It's a sign of how those international relationships can work on multiple levels.
Okay, and then there's the ongoing debate about federal character in President Tinubu's appointments. This is a sensitive topic that comes up again and again.
It's a fundamental issue, isn't it? The idea is to make sure that appointments to public offices reflect the diversity of Nigeria.
Right, making sure all ethnic groups and regions are represented.
Exactly. But when people feel like there's an imbalance, like certain groups are being left out, that's when the controversy starts.
It can lead to feelings of exclusion, unfairness.
Absolutely. It touches on these big questions of national unity, of how to govern a country as diverse as Nigeria.
Okay, now we have a situation brewing in the world of music and politics. PMA, the Musicians Association, is criticizing the NBC for banning a song by Idris Abdul Karim.
What's the song about?
It's an anti-Tinubu song. And Serap, The human rights group has even issued a 48-hour ultimatum demanding that the ban be lifted.
Wow, so it's escalated quickly.
It has. This raises some big questions about freedom of expression, right? Where do you draw the line?
Exactly. When can the government step in and censor art, especially when it's political commentary? This is a classic example of that tension between artistic freedom and government control.
In SERAP, they're saying this ban violates constitutional rights.
Right. Freedom of speech, freedom of expression.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. It could have implications for other artists, for the whole creative industry.
Now, on a completely different note, Governor Adi of Abia State is urging Igbo youths to join the Nigerian army. This seems to be a different stance from IPOB.
Yeah, this is a complex issue. You have different voices within the Igbo community, different views on their relationship with Nigeria.
Right, some wanting to break away, form their own nation.
Exactly. Governor Adi's call for joining the army, it suggests he believes in being part of Nigeria, working within the existing system. It's a different path from the separatist ideas of IPOB.
So within the same community, you have these different perspectives on identity, on belonging.
Exactly. It's a reflection of that ongoing debate within the Igbo community, figuring out their place in Nigeria.
Okay, now we have some news about a tragic incident. A group of travelers were lynched, and now there's a joint federal government and Edo State probe panel to investigate.
That's awful. That kind of violence, it's unacceptable.
And a delegation from Kano State, where the travelers were from, has arrived in Benin.
It shows the gravity of this situation,
Uh-huh.
that it's not just a local issue.
Right, it has national implications. And this cooperation between the federal government and the states, it seems crucial.
It is. It's about ensuring a thorough investigation, making sure justice is served, and hopefully, by working together, they can prevent something like this from happening again.
Let's move on to some legal updates. Nnamdi Kanu, he's been trying to challenge his repatriation through the courts, but his suit has been struck out.
That's a significant setback for him.
It is, and there's another case that's been dismissed. This one involved the detention of some Chinese suspects.
Interesting.
Yeah, it raises questions about due process, about how Nigeria handles cases involving foreign nationals.
Absolutely. And it all feeds into the bigger picture of international relations, of Nigeria's legal system. These rulings, they set precedents, they have consequences for future cases.
The appeal court has also upheld the ICPC's power to investigate a rape allegation against a professor.
That's an important decision. It shows that no one is above the law.
Right, even within academia.
Exactly. It reinforces the ICPC's mandate to fight corruption, to investigate abuse of power, even in sensitive cases like this.
It sends a message about accountability.
Absolutely. Now, shifting to foreign policy, the list of potential ambassadors is ready for review by the National Assembly. They've already been cleared by the DSS, so it's moving through the system.
It is. Appointing ambassadors, that's a big part of a country's foreign policy.
It is. These are the people who represent Nigeria on the world stage. They're crucial for building relationships with other countries, for promoting Nigeria's interests.
Right, so it's a position that carries a lot of weight.
Absolutely. Having both the DSS and the National Assembly involved, that ensures there's a thorough vetting process.
Okay, back to domestic matters. Lawmakers from the Northeast are raising concerns about being excluded from the federal government's SAPZ program.
Those special agro-processing zones.
Right, they're designed to boost agricultural investment in certain areas.
Exactly. And the lawmakers from the Northeast, they're saying, hey, what about us? They feel like they're being left out of these development opportunities.
Right, it raises those questions about regional disparities.
Absolutely. If certain regions are consistently left behind, it can hinder the overall development of the country.
Okay, on a more local level, Senator Nwoko has reportedly secured over $30 billion for projects in Delta North.
That's a substantial amount of funding.
It is. These constituency projects, they're meant to address specific needs within a senator's district.
Right, things like building schools, clinics, improving infrastructure.
Exactly. So that amount, it shows a significant commitment to his constituents.
It does. It'll be interesting to see what those projects are, what kind of impact they have.
Okay, now we have some developments in the political arena. Sadly, the APC had to close its national secretariat.
Why was that?
It was a security issue. One of their directors had been kidnapped and was tragically killed.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
It shows how serious the security challenges are in Nigeria. They affect everyone, even political parties.
And then there's some political maneuvering going on. The Lagos GAC has welcomed Jandor into the APC.
He was a PDP member, wasn't he?
He was. So it's a sign of those shifting alliances, those changes in loyalty that you often see in politics.
Exactly. And there are updates on the PDP primaries in Anambra State, with the APC expressing confidence about their chances there.
It's all part of that ongoing political competition, that jockeying for position that never really stops.
Absolutely, it's a dynamic system.
The PDP has also decided to postpone their congresses in 3 zones.
I wonder why.
It could be a strategic move. Maybe they need more time to organize to get their ducks in a row.
Makes sense? It's all part of that internal party management, those behind-the-scenes decisions that can have a big impact on their overall strategy.
Right. Now, at the state level, Governor Sanwo-Olu of Lagos is promising to distribute projects evenly across the state.
Trying to make sure everyone benefits.
Exactly. And in Delta State, Governor Oborevwori has signed several bills into law.
That's the day-to-day work of governing, isn't it? Making those decisions, putting policies into action.
Right. Then we have the Ondo State House of Assembly getting involved in a salary dispute between polytechnic workers.
Stepping in to try and resolve the issue.
Yeah. And the Oyo state government is paying compensation to people whose property was affected by the Circular Road project.
Addressing those social impacts of development.
Exactly. And there are some religious matters brewing as well. The Ekiti state government is appealing to Muslim leaders after a mosque was demolished.
That's a sensitive issue.
It is. And in Lagos, there are concerns about the closure of a mosque.
Religious freedom is a fundamental right. It's important that those concerns are addressed.
And in Delta State, youths are protesting, complaining about insecurity and power outages.
Expressing their frustration, demanding action.
Yeah, it shows you how many different issues are playing out at the local and state levels.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that national headlines are only one part of the story. There's a whole other level of activity happening within individual states and communities.
Okay, let's turn our attention now to security and defense. Over 2,000 Nigerian military personnel have been training in Pakistan.
International cooperation.
Yeah. What do you think they're hoping to gain from that?
Well, military training programs like this, they're a way to enhance skills, to learn new tactics. They get exposure to different operational environments, different ways of doing things.
Right, it broadens their perspective.
Exactly. And it strengthens those military ties between countries. In this case, it suggests a level of trust, a willingness to share expertise between Nigeria and Pakistan.
Okay, the NNPCL boss is saying that the AKK gas pipeline is 72% complete.
That's a big project.
It is. It's meant to transport natural gas from the south to the north.
Right, so it has implications for energy security, for industrial development. It's a vital piece of infrastructure.
And securing that infrastructure, that's got to be a top priority.
Absolutely. Especially with the security challenges that Nigeria faces.
We're also hearing from Admiral Ibis, the former chief of naval staff. He's denying reports of large-scale recruitment into the Navy.
That's interesting. I wonder what prompted that.
Maybe there were rumors going around, people trying to take advantage of job seekers.
Could be. It's important to get the facts straight to prevent anyone from being misled.
And sadly, there's a report of armed herdsmen killing 3 people in a Benue community.
That's a recurring problem, isn't it? Those clashes between farmers and herdsmen, they've been a source of violence and instability for years.
It's a complex issue with deep roots.
It is. And finding a lasting solution, it's a major challenge for the government.
On a slightly more positive note, 12 Biafran agitators have been released in Ebonyi State.
The charges against them were dropped.
Yeah. This is a sensitive issue, the Biafran separatist movement.
It is. Could this be a sign of things calming down, a move towards reconciliation? It's hard to say without knowing more about why the charges were withdrawn.
Okay, let's move on to infrastructure and development. Lagos State has just unveiled the alignment for its coastal metro project.
A metro line along the coast. That's ambitious.
It is. Lagos is a megacity, traffic is a nightmare. This new metro line, it's meant to ease congestion, make it easier for people to get around.
And it can boost the economy, too. When people can move freely, businesses can thrive.
Right, it's all connected. And the federal government and the AFDB are launching a plan for special agro-industrial zones in Cross River State.
We talked about those SAPZs earlier, those zones dedicated to agricultural processing.
Yeah, they're trying to attract investment, create those value chains.
Exactly. If it works, it can boost agricultural productivity, create jobs in Cross River State. It has the potential to be a real win-win.
But there's also some not-so-good news on the transportation front. The NRC is suspending the Warri-Atakpi rail service.
Oh, no, that's a problem.
It is. People rely on that rail line for transportation, for getting goods to market.
Any disruption to rail services, that can have a ripple effect on the whole economy.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what the reason for the suspension is, how long it's going to last.
And then there's this debate about who's responsible for the poor condition of the Eco and Carter bridges in Lagos.
Dredgers are saying it's not their fault.
Right. Maintaining infrastructure in a city like Lagos, that's a constant battle.
It is. Saltwater, heavy traffic, it takes its toll. It's a reminder that development is not just about building new things. It's about keeping what you have in good shape.
Okay, and on a more positive note, Oyo State has paid compensation to the people affected by this circular road project.
Right. Acknowledging that development can have a social cost.
Exactly. And sometimes that means compensating people who are displaced, whose lives are disrupted.
It's about being fair, about trying to minimize the negative impacts of these projects.
And at the local level, the EPA local government is distributing first aid boxes to primary schools.
A small step, but an important one.
Yeah, making sure those basic health and safety measures are in place.
Exactly. It shows they're thinking about the well-being of the children.
Okay, let's dive into social issues now. The Japa phenomenon, it's still a big concern. Over 15,000 nurses left Nigeria in 2024.
That's a huge loss for the healthcare system.
It is. It's a brain drain. Those skilled professionals, they're seeking better opportunities abroad.
It's understandable, but it creates a real problem for Nigeria.
Yeah.
It puts more pressure on the nurses who stay. It can affect the quality of care.
Right, and it's not just nurses. Doctors, engineers, other professionals are leaving too.
It's a symptom of deeper issues. They need to address things like working conditions, salaries, opportunities for advancement if they want to keep those talented people in Nigeria.
And we're seeing more labor unrest. Teachers in the FCT and area councils workers are still on strike.
They've been out for 2 weeks now.
Yeah. These strikes, they disrupt education, they disrupt essential services.
It's a sign that something's not working. The government needs to listen to those workers' concerns, address their grievances.
Right, find a solution that works for everyone.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between the needs of the workers and the needs of the country.
Now, on a more positive note, the First Lady has launched a program to distribute midwives' kits in the Northeast.
That's a good initiative, especially for that region. They've been through so much with the insurgency.
Right. It's about improving maternal and child health, making sure women have access to skilled birth attendants.
And it shows that even amidst those challenges, there are people working to make a difference.
And then we have billionaire Arthur Ives. He's donating $5 million to Rotary's maternal and child health program.
That's a generous contribution.
It is. It's great to see the private sector getting involved in these social welfare initiatives.
Absolutely. It can make a real impact on people's lives.
Okay, in the education sector, universities have been given the green light to recruit more staff.
That's good news. They've been facing staffing shortages.
Yeah, this waiver from the government, it should help them fill those gaps, maintain academic standards.
Absolutely. And then you have the VC of River State University. He's warning students about using their tuition fees for gambling.
That's an interesting problem to have to deal with.
It is. It highlights those social issues that sometimes creep into university life. It's a reminder that education is not just about academics. It's about the whole student experience.
Right, their well-being, making good choices.
Exactly. And UDUS, they've just welcomed a large number of new students at their matriculation ceremony.
That's a sign of growth in the tertiary education sector.
It is. More and more young people are seeking higher education. It's a positive trend.
And the Gombe State NBA has confirmed that they've received subsidized rice from the federal government.
Part of that National Food Security Program.
Yeah. It's interesting to see how those national policies trickle down to the local level.
It is. And sometimes those local impacts, they're the most visible, the most tangible for people.
And there's a protest happening in Delta State. Ijaw youths are demonstrating at the INEC office.
What's their issue?
They're unhappy about the way the Warriors Southwest constituency is delineated. It's about political representation, about making sure their voices are heard.
It's a reminder that those local political dynamics, they can be just as intense, just as important to people as national politics.
And the federal government is launching a cultural academy in September. It'll have campuses in several states.
Promoting cultural education, preserving traditions.
Exactly. It's an investment in the future of Nigerian culture.
It is. It's about passing on that heritage to the next generation.
Okay, let's run through some other notable news. NERC is fining discos for overbilling customers who don't have meters.
That's good to hear. Protecting consumers in the power sector, that's crucial.
And JMB is reporting a large number of applicants for the UTME mock exam.
So the university admissions process is in full swing.
Yeah. And we have a Nigerian journalist attempting to break a Guinness World Record for the longest marathon interview.
What's the purpose of that?
It's all about advocating for press freedom.
It is. And there's a gathering of prominent figures to celebrate the late AGF Bola Ajibola.
Paying their respects to a respected figure. Yeah, former Presidents Obasanjo and Jonathan, Vice President Osinbajo, former Governor Fashola, they were all there.
It shows the impact he had on the nation.
And former President Jonathan is in South Korea for a world summit.
Nigeria engaging on the international stage.
Exactly. And the Nigerian press is also covering international news, like the nightclub fire in the Dominican Republic, the impact of Trump's tariffs on China.
Keeping people informed about what's happening in the wider world.
Right. And Governor Saludo of a number state, he's confident that the APC won't be able to replicate its success in Edo State in Anambra.
That's a bold statement. It reflects those regional political dynamics.
Okay, time for some did you know? Fun facts. Did you know that the colors of the rainbow are red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet?
Royd Biv.
That's the mnemonic. And did you know that every year, about 22,000 tons of dust from the Sahara Desert blows across the Atlantic Ocean to the Amazon rainforest?
Wow, that's incredible. It shows how interconnected our planet is.
It does, doesn't it? And for today in history, on this day in 1979, Idi Amin's brutal regime in Uganda was overthrown.
Marking the end of a dark chapter in that country's history.
And we have a quote from Khalil Gibran. Between what is said and not meant, and what is meant and not said, most of love is lost.
That's deep. It makes you think about how we communicate, how we sometimes misunderstand each other.
It does, it does. Okay, well, that was our deep dive into April 11th, 2025 in Nigeria. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have. It's amazing how much can happen in just one day.
It really is. And that's what we wanted to show you. A snapshot of a single day with all its complexities, its triumphs, its tragedies.
Exactly. A glimpse into the dynamic and multifaceted nature of a nation.
And hopefully we've sparked your curiosity to explore some of these topics further. Each headline is just the tip of the iceberg.
There's a whole story behind each one, waiting to be uncovered.
So here's a final thought for you to ponder. We've seen economic shifts, political dramas, social challenges, international engagements, all happening at the same time in the same country. It makes you wonder, how are all these events connected? How do they influence each other in ways we haven't even considered? It's something to think about until our next deep dive.
It is. The world is a complex and interconnected place.
It certainly is. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
Always a pleasure.